everybody. I'm Nick Powles, publisher of 1851franchise.com. We are an industry-leading publication on franchising, and the job of our publication is to tell stories of franchisees and franchisors and how do they build success and legacy and everything else that comes alongside being in this wonderful industry that we serve. Today, we're going to talk about legacy. We have two families that we're going to have join us in just a second. But this will give you a chance to see what does it look like to be in a system for a long time? How do you look at things long term? What were their pathways to becoming franchise owners as well? So I'm going to start with Susan and Carol. Susan and Carol, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi.
Would love you guys frame your story. You're going to do a much better job than I will at this. But if I said, tell me your story, like what's your family story? How do you get involved in Sylvan, and what does it look like today? Why don't we start there? Tee this up for us.
So I have a dream, and for all my life, I wanted to have my own school. So I've been an educator for more than 50 years, and I decided to go back to graduate school after not being in school for 25 years and get my degree in administration, thinking that that would be, as a school administrator, I could have it my school. I could do it my way. Well, I went through school, and when I got out in the interview process, I realized this was not going to be my school. There were school boards telling me what to do. There were state standards that told me. And most of all, if there were tenured teachers that I could not do anything about, it wasn't my school. Then Sylvan poked its head up, and we looked at it very carefully for over a year. And I knew from that moment that I could really be in control of my future. And that's how I started and my franchise. Was I nervous at first? Very. But in the first year, I became the fastest growing Sylvan Center that they've had and run the award for that. So it's been a long journey, more than 28 years, and I still love every minute of what I do. And then
I started after about the first year, we thought, what did my mother buy? What is this Sylvan franchise? And she had really done a great job. And I had graduated from college, and she brought me in to work with her. At first, she told me, you can work for me part-time, you can help. I was kind of at home with plans to go to medical school. And I started working together with her in our first center. And things grew very quickly. And I found that, business was really my passion. And I kind of changed my course, ended up getting my MBA, opening up another center, and then another and another. And we've been working together ever since.
I love that. So it wasn't necessarily in the cards. You decided, I want to buy this franchise, and you turn into a mother-daughter team because of almost happenstance. And now you've scaled the business as time in life has gone on. If you reflect backwards on it, like what were some of the things that the two of you needed to work through together to make it so that the working partnership would be beneficial?
Well, we also work with my brother, so he's involved in our franchises too. And, family businesses are amazing, but they're also challenging for sure. And trying to maintain that relationship of a family, separating yourself from the day-to-day business is not easy to do. We've tried to kind of through the years do some special things together, kind of still keep that mother-daughter relationship, travel together, separate ourselves from the business as a whole. But, I think what we've really strategized between the two of us and then my brother as well is we always say, stay in your lane. Everybody's good at something, and find what you're best at and then build it together. You have a relationship as a family that's different than anybody else that would work for you or with you. You can kind of cut through all the red tape and, just kind of say what you need to say and kind of work things through and understand each other on a different level. But knowing that everybody has their strengths and then really capitalizing on those things, I think is really the key.
How has the dream changed or evolved? Because obviously you guys get in with one unit, and the pushover is the red tape that came with making a difference with children and education, caused, a moment to look into this. And the dream obviously at Unit 1 is let's become franchise owners, which is a big risk. You're investing your life savings into a business that you have relatively little control over still. You're being entrepreneurial, but you're as a part of a system. And then obviously you guys have scaled the company and your brother has got involved as well. But how has the dream changed over time? And what does the dream look like today?
Well, of course, COVID had a big influence on changing things that happened, but it also gave us the fact that we could have that delivery virtually. So that's added another component. But what doesn't change? What doesn't change is the fact that we have the lives of thousands of children in our hands. And that's what I keep in mind all the time. The lives that we've changed, the families that we've helped, the opportunities for kids who never would have been what they've been today if it hadn't been for Sylvan.
And I think the great thing is especially for my mom, the passion for education and for teaching kids and for helping families has never changed. And we drive with that every single day. So the families that we reach and the lives that we touch, that's our kind of guiding force. And we lead with that as we make decisions. It's been, amazing over all of these years. Sylvan as a franchise has really changed our lives. It's given us the flexibility to really be a family together, with my children, be able to live the life we've always dreamed of. So it's really given us a lot of financial opportunities, and along with that flexibility to kind of build the dream financially that we aspired to as well. It's always interesting, and we're able to kind of keep things new at Sylvan too. So that's one of the things I love about it, is that nothing ever stays the same. If you have one center as you start out, you're learning the day-to-day operations, but over the years, you can really grow as a person too. It's taught both of us so much, I think, about ourselves and about what we love. And for me, it's being able to do school contracts and reach more families, going into the schools and being able to help kids that might not be able to have access to Sylvan. So we're really expanding our reach and our business model, which has given us challenges that are good, and challenges that are also very lucrative. But it's put ourselves out there in the business world in a whole new way. And I think that's something I really love about it too.
What I love when you both of you are talking, you're talking with passion about something that's bigger than business. And the reality is business comes alongside of people are super passionate and having influence in the community. Is that something like, do you have to focus on the micro side of business, or do you get to really focus on the macro side of passion as a part of this? Does a business never even get in the way because you know the impact that you're having to humans and the community?
I think it does. That's a large component, I think, from the sales process is, not just selling Sylvan, but really selling something that you believe in. So we always believe in Sylvan first, and I think everything else follows. When we're going out and meeting with the family, we know this is the best possible product that we can do. This is going to be life-changing for these people. And so I think our passion comes across naturally, and then that helps people gravitate towards it. They trust us. They believe in us to be able to help their families. A lot of people come to us in really dire need. Their kids can't read. They're really struggling. They're failing. Their self-esteem is low. Their family dynamics are really challenged. They're fighting at home. All of those things do not make for a happy home life or happy kids. And we have the power to give them some relief. And I think when we kind of lead with that, that makes the biggest difference.
I also think that we have so many kids that are there because they want to get ahead. Education, especially today, since COVID, has been such a challenge. And we have kids that want to be ahead. They want to have enrichment. They want to be able to skip courses, all the kinds of things that we have where parents never had a path for that before. So it just is something that we truly believe in. And we're out in the community. I think that's very important too, that we are very well known and have a great personal reputation as a family in the community. They see that our kids, my grandchildren are at Sylvan. My son's out there doing marketing, doing things to make sure that people at all times know about Sylvan. And I think just one to summarize it, I think we're nice people, and other people think that we are as well.
So, I think staying relevant in the community is an important part of it. People equate us with Sylvan, and therefore it does make the business side of things easier. It kind of just flows because we're there. We're educators. They know we can turn to us. And we're always there, I think, genuinely to help families. And then the business success, knock on wood, has really just followed that. And then being smart and being entrepreneurial and taking some risks too. Some things work out better than others, but putting yourself out there and believing in yourself and your product is what has really led to our success.
So I'm going to end on this part with you guys. I'll bring you guys back after we introduce the Sullivans. But legacy is part of what we're talking about today. I hear grandchildren, there's other folks in the family. Like, is your vision now that this continues on in your family, or what does legacy mean to you guys as a family?
I mean, Sylvan has been our whole lives, really, for the past 25 years. So it's really all we know. It's all my children even know. I think education has become a very big priority in our family and our extended family. So our kids believe in that wholeheartedly. They know how hard we work. They know how much we respect teachers, and they do too. And they know that education and success in school is really the ticket for their futures. I think I'll be around for a while, and my mom is always here too. It's I think we can't imagine her not working, and everybody always says that. We always say, go ahead, retire, enjoy your life, but she loves Sylvan more than anything. So we do see it continuing on. We're not going anywhere. We keep taking on new projects, and if one of our kids decides that education and they're believe in being educators, then I would hope that they would kind of join us in the business. But it's given us a wonderful life for all of these years, and we don't see it going anywhere anytime soon.
I love that. I happen to be the owner of our business, and my wife is involved in it. But what really it does jazz me up, and it gives me goosebumps when one of my kids, I'm like, maybe we're going to sell the business someday. And they're like, don't do that. I want to run the business someday. And it's like, all right, that's cool. I mean, even just knowing that a business is allowed to be a part of a family, and it's okay. It's okay to blur those lines. I think it's admirable. And obviously you talked about it. You work through the bumps and bruises, and you continue to figure things out. But eventually, 25 years in a system, you know what you're doing. And then, other family can look at it and either admire to do it or aspire to do it.
I think that's a wonderful kind of gift to give your kids, is that they see you doing something that you love and they would want to do it too, and you're also giving your kids a great work ethic, seeing when you're a family business, you're working all the time, there's no 9 to 5 and I'm leaving, and it's late night talks, it's at dinner, it's all the time. So they kind of have grown up with that too. And I think imparting that into kids is important. It teaches them that, there's resilience, that when things are hard, you can work through them, that in the end, family is the most important thing, and that you really need to stay bonded to each other, even when you disagree. And all of that teaches them relationships and business sense and how to go out into the world and make your mark, which I think is really valuable.
I love it. Susan and Carol, I'll bring you back in just a little bit. Let me welcome in the Sullivans to learn their story. Sullivans, all three of you, thanks for joining us. I want to start with the same question to you guys, Mike, Sydney, and Matthew. Tell me your story. Tell me your family story. Position this for anybody who's watching this in real time or watching in the future.
Okay, well, we started into the Sylvan business as a career transition. Cindy and I were partners with 2 other guys that owned 10 new car automobile franchises in the area that we live in, and we sold out of that business, and we're then looking at what do we do next. And when we got into Sylvan, our initial interest was in doing something that had an impact, something that would help people. It was not so much that we needed Sylvan to be able to eat, as much as we were just looking for something in the next career that was meaningful, helpful. And through a series of events, we ran into Sylvan and purchased it. It was a very small center when we started. Honestly, we did not look at it as a great business opportunity at that time, as much as just a way to do something meaningful. Both Cindy and I were interested in education, but neither one of us were educators. Cindy worked as a volunteer and also sometimes as a substitute in our local public school. I was an elected member of the school board, so we had an interest, but we didn't really see ourselves as teachers. So when we bought the business, it was just to scratch that itch. But in a very short time period, we realized, wow, this is an amazing business model if it's run like a business. And so we began running it like a business. That was 22 years and 2 months ago. We doubled the size of the center in the first year. And in the second year, then we thought, well, this is replicable. And so we began looking around for other opportunities, found another opportunity in a center that was located 2.5 hours away from us. We bought that, did the same thing, doubled it. And so it was Cindy and I running both of these centers with staff that we were hiring and trying to develop. And literally, we did everything. Cindy did the accounting. She bought supplies. She managed expenses. She did financial reporting. She ran the student store. I was in charge of operations and just learning as we went. We really didn't have somebody to tell us how to do things. We figured it out as we went along, but we were the janitorial staff as well as the owners. And so we did that pretty well for several years. And then Matthew had graduated from college. And before I let him pick it up, I'll let Cindy add anything she might have to that initial story. And then Matthew can talk about how he got involved and when he got involved. So Cindy, what would you add to the startup phase?
Well, we also did it to eat. He said we didn't do it, but we did it for fun. It was our livelihood, and it was what we used to support our two sons and help get our two sons through college. And but we just felt like we could live off of whatever we made in Sylvan, never realizing that it was such a profitable business venture. And so we did it with our heart, and then from there it grew. And we did do. I've always told everybody that's employed by us that whatever they do, we've already done it. Or I never ask somebody to do something that I wouldn't do, and that includes cleaning the tables and making sure that there's no fingerprints on the windows or on the doors and making the place look nice. So we've never expected our staff to do anything that we don't do ourselves. So we're very hands-on.
So I graduated college in 2009, and when I first graduated college, the last thing I wanted to do was go work for my parents. I had honestly a pretty negative perception of people who work for their parents. I always thought, okay, you go to work for mom and dad because nobody else will hire you. So I wanted to go off and do my own thing and be independent. And I did that for a couple of years. I moved to San Antonio and worked for a technology consulting company. And after a year and a half or so of that, I realized this job is not really something that gets me up in the morning excited to go to work. I realized I was working for a paycheck. And I remember telling my dad one day, I said, I don't care if my boss comes in and hands me $100,000 check. I still would not want to stay and do this job. And so while I was doing that job, I started talking to my dad about things that I might be interested in. One of the things that I was doing just as a volunteer was doing some coaching of a Little League baseball player. And I realized how much I loved having an impact in that young man's life. His name was Justin, and I met with Justin every single Wednesday night. We'd go practice together. I'd go to his games, and I realized I enjoyed doing that far more than I enjoyed my current job. And so I was telling my dad, I want to do something that impacts kids. I want to do something that makes a difference. But then I also studied business in school. And so I wanted to have a business opportunity. And he kept telling me, man, Sylvan is exactly that. It's business and it's impacting young lives. And I pushed away for probably a solid year or so until he finally talked me into coming in 2011 to try as an intern. So he started me out as an intern. He did not even hire me full time. He made me earn it. And so I did a 90-day internship with him. And 30 days in, I said, I'm ready. I want to do this full time. And he said, no, you got to complete your internship. So most of our directors had an easier path than what I did when I started. I started as a $13 an hour intern and had to work my way up. And everything that I've learned, I've been mentored and taught by my dad. And I took some of the things that he taught me and then began expanding on it once I learned the business.
What a great story. There's a few things I want to unpack. So first, Dad, did you know that Matthew was eventually going to come into this business and that was a matter of time? And do you have to sit back on the sidelines and let him go figure out his pathway? Or is ultimately where you guys got to what you were envisioning as a family?
No, I can honestly say I did not envision him coming on board at all because, like he said, he made it so clear that he wanted to forge his own path, and we wanted him to. And he was very successful in the career that he was in. It wasn't that he came to us because he couldn't do it on his own. The company that he left was devastated when he left. But when he and I were talking, just father and son talk about how he liked his job, everything he kept saying that he wanted was describing Sylvan. Yeah. So when he did come on board, we both wanted to make it really clear to anybody that Matthew did not have any advantage by being Sullivan. And so he started at the lowest position and literally had to earn every step up. But no, it wasn't part of the plan. We were thrilled to death for him to come, but we didn't even really know if he was going to be able to do it successfully. But in a very short time period, I remember telling Cindy one day, Cindy, Matthew is better than me. And she thought I was kidding. I said, no, I can see it. He's got it. Awesome. He is going to be so much better than me. It's not funny. And that was prophetic, and it turned out to be true.
I love that. Matthew, when you're going through your own experience in your career, because what you described is what a lot of franchisees end up, it happens to most franchisees, that they're in a job that even if they like it and even if it's making money, there's something that's missing. It's a passion play where you're coaching a kid out in the ball fields. Like, you know what that felt like, and you were missing that when you're busting your butt for someone else every day. Like, as you reflect backwards, like, did you know that this pathway had to make sense for you? And, you know, obviously you didn't want to jump into the family business right away because of the perception of what you had and probably what others have about working for your family. But like, if you look backwards and saying like, I knew that I was missing passion, that I needed to cross apply this, like, is it almost like you wish you would have done it earlier? Or did you, like, as you reflect backwards, you saw this pathway, you just were maybe risk averse to doing it?
Yeah, no, I considered everything else under the sun except this. Like I said, I did not want to work for Dad. And so I considered going into the Marines to make a difference. I considered becoming a missionary. I considered becoming a high school coach. But all of those things didn't scratch the business side of me. And so I was looking for a very unique thing, and that is the opportunity to make an impact and make a difference while also running a business. And so I interviewed for other companies. I probably interviewed with close to a half dozen other companies looking for that right opportunity and never found it. And so finally I gave up and said, all right, I guess I'll try Sylvan. So it wasn't like something that I was necessarily looking for. It was almost like, all right, this is my last resort. I'll see how this goes. And then I ended up loving it. So, yeah, it was not my first choice. It was not the path that I thought I would take, but I feel like now having done it, it fits so much of my skill set for one, but then also the things that get me excited about coming to work. So today or I look forward to Monday morning. I really, truly do. There's not a single week that I can't get excited about going to work on Monday, where that was not always the case. In fact, in a lot of weeks, it was never the case in my prior career.
Love it. And Mom, when you were giving your opening statement, you're the realist. You said, well, wait a second, it was to feed our family. This was our business. Like, for you, have you taken a realistic approach to the business? And is that important in a family model so that everybody understands their lane? But are you looking at things as a realist and saying, yes, but we've committed our entire family. All of us are in it. We have to make this work to feed our family. Have you taken more of a realistic approach to the business to make sure that it evens out and stays and remains stable?
Yes. Mike and Matthew would probably say I go overboard, but I'm a very type A frugal person. And so everything that we do, I want, as far expense wise, I keep a control over it, or I try to keep more control over it than they want me to, probably. But it has become a very successful business to us. We really felt like that as long as we could, I've always told Mike our whole married life, whatever you make, I can live off of. Somehow I can live off of whatever it is. And we have. There haven't always been good times, bad times as far as financially, but I think you can do that. And we have done that. And then our business has just, since Matthew came on board, Mike and I did a good job when it was just the two of us, and we made a good living. But when Matthew came on board, he's young, he's innovative, he's got more energy, and our business has exploded. And but we each have our own individual roles, and we each do that. Mike and Matthew do the operations, and I basically do the accounting. So I don't even office here at the office. I have an office at my home, and I do all the accounting there. But we each have our own roles, and we work together very well. And Mike likes when we get like Susan said, when you're doing a business as a family, you talk about it whenever you're together. And so we really try sometimes to minimize it when we're with other family members, because they don't want us totally be talking about Sylvan all the time.
What's your guys' dream now? And with the three of you, does the dream meet in the middle, or do you guys each have different dreams for where your business and careers go from here on out?
Oh, they're absolutely different. So Cindy and I are in a transitional mode again, where we are selling the business to Matthew, and we have two other partners also that are in our other locations. We are selling the business to them over time. Now, our dream is that perhaps someday another son that we have might join us, but today it's the three of us, and the game plan is pretty simple for Cindy and I. We want to reduce our day-to-day involvement. We want to travel. We want to do things that we have passion and desire to do that do not involve growing the business or, frankly, even making more money. Matthew has a completely different idea about where the business is going, and I'll let him answer that question.
So my goal would be to continue to grow from where we're at. I'm 35, so I've still probably got another 30 years in front of me, and so I'd love to keep climbing more mountains and impact more lives, and continue to take the baton and run with it that my dad gave me. So I feel like my dad gave me a really strong foundation. He taught me the ropes, and then my job is to steward that and make the most of it.
I think one of the coolest things that I'm hearing here, I hear pride from both sides. And even though, like, obviously, as you guys are figuring out as a family, Matthew, you coming on after you took a different pathway in your career, but the pride that you have in what your parents built, and obviously the parents and what you're now continuing to build is quite spectacular. And Sylvan ends up being the widget, and you guys found ways to impact communities and humans and make a difference, and have the moments where you're teaching children just like you were, Matthew, on the ball field. But it's cool to see the pride come from both sides. And frankly, now this is building legacy. This is the family legacy, and you successfully exited an automobile business into something else. So you know the foundational elements of business. You've passed that on to Matthew, and that's quite amazing. It's very very nice to hear that story, because because this is exactly what franchising and family business should look like.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I would say the interesting thing about family business is you're pretty comfortable with each other. So you're not always going to hold back what you think. So every now and then we have some tension in the relationship. But the other beauty of family business is at the end of the day, we're still family. So like Susan said, if you do have a disagreement, blood is thicker than water, and we always come back together and we still get along. And so there's a trust factor when you're working with family that is rare and unique and special.
I love it. Let me bring back in Susan and Carol. I just want to do a quick round robin of just a few more questions. Susan and Carol, I'll start with you guys first, and then I'll go over to the Sullivans. For any family that is looking at Sylvan, and it could be a husband and wife, it could be a mother-daughter, it could be a father-son, it could be a combination. What advice would you have for them about looking at Sylvan, the business, as they're exploring it? What would you say to them?
Recently we had one center that we sold, and we sold it to a husband and wife team. And, I thought it was great because they both brought different things to the table. They had varied backgrounds. The woman was a teacher, and the husband was more of a businessman that had kind of an additional business. And so I thought together they were really going to have that opportunity to really kind of build their relationship and build their livelihood, which is really what they were looking for their young family. So I think a family business really, gives people an opportunity to be able to work together, to be able to celebrate each other, to be able to spend time together, but also collectively work to really develop that financial independence that everybody's looking for. And it's not just financial, I think, too. Nowadays, it's also the flexibility of time to be able to spend with your family, time to be able to travel and enjoy life. I think that's one thing that's really important. And I think a team, you both are kind of coming together to be able to build something special, but also give yourselves the opportunity to really to expand your financial scenario and go out into the world and be able to have a good life that you enjoy together too.
Sullivans, any advice that you guys would have for families looking at Sylvan?
I'd like to hear all three of us answer that, actually, because we probably have a different perspective. And that's, I think, what I would say about this is what you realize is that everybody comes to the table with different strengths and different weaknesses. And we really get a chance to see our individual strengths. And the reality is sometimes our individual weaknesses manifest themselves, but we offset each other and we work together for the common goal. The other thing I would say is it is so much fun, so satisfying to be part of an ongoing thing that affects kids for the rest of their lives and be able to celebrate that as we encounter it. So just last night, Cindy and I were at a dinner, ran into one of our customers, and her son was with her, and her son starts his new job at MD Anderson as a doctor on Friday. And they were talking about the SAT program. And so I called Matthew and I said, hey, remember these people? And we just ran into them. And a few days before that, we ran into a doctor that we had their kids in here. And I called Matthew about that. He said, I've still got a note on my desk that doctor wrote me. And so those kind of connections that we have in the community are not just mine. They're not just Matthew's. They're not just Cindy's. They're all of ours. We've had a part in it. And it's so fun to see what happens, not just this year when the child finally passes, but next year when they get out of the grade that they're in, and the next year they get into college they want to go to, and then they get into the career that they want to. But I really want to hear Cindy and Matthew address the same question.
Well, at that same dinner that we were at last night, we ran into the lady that we bought Sylvan from. So
Wow.
Some of the people that are on this, if they're listening, that were in Sylvan years and years and years ago, we brought our Sylvan from Nancy Brock, and she is 81 years old. And we ran into her last night, and she is as thrilled as we are at the success of Sylvan and what impact it has on students, because that's how she knows the legacy's carried on from her to us. And that was 22 years ago that we bought this center from her. And we just saw her last night for the first time in years.
Yeah.
So there were times where I would sometimes feel like my relationship with my parents almost became so business centered that I, almost forgot what it was like that they were parents. And so there were times where I thought, is it good to work with family? But then one day I was realizing, you know what? One day I'm going to have so many more memories because of this experience that people that didn't work with family, that they don't have. And one day when I'm speaking at my dad's funeral, I'm going to be able to speak to his integrity and character in a whole nother way because of how I experienced him in business that nobody else knows about. No one. And so, and the same thing with my mom. I'm going to be able to talk about memories that I had with her that I wouldn't have had I not worked at Sylvan with them. So yes, your relationship becomes very business focused, but at the same time, there are experiences and memories and things that you learn about each other that you wouldn't experience outside of the walls of a business.
And for the record, we're not planning that funeral anytime soon. In case you want to know.
I'm glad you put that disclaimer on there. So Carol, let me start with you on this.
Yes.
I hear in your story that, and if I'm extracting, traveling and finding life outside of business is important too. Is that something that you wish you recognized faster? Did you recognize that fast as a business owner? Yes, business is great, but you got to have life. You got to find passion beyond the business too.
That's absolutely true. I love being with my family, my grandchildren, my son's children and his family, my daughters, and the things that we've been able to do because of Sylvan, but we all look at it as such a centerfold of our lives because it's actually been that. We've built our life around that. I laugh when Susan did come with me. I always tell people, okay, I lost my deposit at Emory because she was going to go to law school, but I gained a partner to help grow my business in a way that I could not do by myself. And that is so important, that everybody does have their own strengths. And believe me, I recognize what mine are not. And so I'm so fortunate to have both Scott and Susan as part of my team because together we're stronger and we've been very successful because of that.
Love that. And back over to Mike and Sydney. Obviously you're transitioning the business over to Matthew. You're selling. Does that mean you're really going to exit, or are you going to be still whispering to Matthew's ear?
Well, that's a little bit different answer for both of us. I am planning to remain active, but not as active. I've told Matthew, here's my dream. One day I'm going to walk up to the center and one of the directors is going to open the door for me and say, can I help you? That's my dream, that they don't know who I am and they don't care. But I will continue to have a role in a variety of ways that are not day-to-day kinds of things and don't require a schedule. Cindy has similar thoughts, although not identical, and I'll let her answer that question for herself.
Well, when we decided that we want to retire and let Matthew take over the business, we at first thought we were going to get completely out. And Matthew's the one that came up with the idea. We are selling our stock and we're selling it to him and to a couple other partners. And he said, why don't you hang on to a percentage of it and that can be your retirement. And then I think also that he wanted, I don't know if he had in the back of his mind, you can ask him, that he will always have his dad as a consultant. And I thought, we've worked hard for 22 years. We ought to be able to hold on to a little bit and be a consultant to him and let it be our retirement. So, and then he also said I could do the stuff that he would let us do something that we really like. And I really like doing the student store and filling it and going and buying toys and labeling them and getting the kids excited. And that's really not a job for me. And I think I can do it even better when I don't have other jobs that I have to do. So we each may hang on to something small.
Yeah, I'd love for my parents to remain involved because I still learn from them. I mean, I've been doing this for 11 years now, but I still learn. And I always say, I'm the one who's always looking to charge ahead. But if it was up to me, I probably would have driven us off the cliff by now. My dad is the wise one who kind of reins me back in sometimes. And so I need that experience and wisdom to tell me when I'm heading the right direction or when I'm heading the wrong direction, and give me pause when I need to pause. So I would always love to be able to call my parents and say, all right, what do you think about this? Or how do you feel about this? And be able to seek their input.
I love
And
it. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think, a big part of Sylvan is that partnership piece. Everybody, there's so many moving parts to Sylvan, and it's hard to be good at every single one of them, from the education to the business to, taking care of the physical property and all of the things within it, hiring, going out in the community, marketing. You're really, as the Sylvan said, you're wearing every hat, from lead sales team to janitorial staff, and and some of those things you like better than others. But I think having a partner, whether it is your family or you're a spouse kind of couple, or just a team that really comes together to bring things to the table, those are some of the most successful franchisors that I have seen. Is people that are willing to kind of work together with others, that respect each other's strengths and are willing to listen, and understand that everybody brings different things to the table, because then together you can really be a powerhouse and you can go out and really achieve great things as a result.
I love it. Great close there. And the reality is, like, what I hear is love and passion and family and memories. Like, all of you guys are doing awesome things in your communities and obviously in your families. Like, you're all making tremendous impacts. It's impacting your lives financially. It's impacting your lives emotionally. And I'm very appreciative and grateful that you guys were all willing to share some of your stories with me and with our audience. And I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you so much for sharing your Sylvan stories.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.